LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Monday, February the 12th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Your first daily dose of happy for the day. And we're getting all revved up, getting excited for the new show that we're adding Tuesday evenings, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., starting tomorrow night. And we're hoping that it becomes an opportunity that listeners take advantage of to call in and talk with us and share their insights and ask questions and do all the things that we like to do on listener calls. So we're getting revved up at our end. In fact, Tom, you came up with a topic today that, like you said, we can carry it over to Tuesday night if we need to. Although I'm kind of hopeful we won't need to, because I think people are going to call in. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun. But you're right. This topic is just like, it's a topic that can go on forever. You could talk about this one for days at a time.
Tuesday night show with talking about abundance and talking about money. There's going to be people that will want to talk about that, since it seems to be on a lot of people's minds.
Oh, of course. Yeah, money makes the world go round, right? So, yeah, people are going to be very, 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 very wrapped up in it, very concerned about it. And it becomes a poignant topic no matter what situation you're in. How did your weekend go? I hope you had a good one.
Yeah, I did. Mainly the big win I have was Friday. I gave a speech at my Toastmasters club. Toastmasters is an organization that you go to learn to be a good public speaker, and it was my chance to speak, which is rare, because there's like 30, 40 people, but I try to book a slot every once in a while, and so I had a big win because I got first place. That was literally a win.
Whoa, congratulations.
Yeah, and it was really cool because I called on law of attraction, and the whole speech was about a law of attraction topic, which is how do you do visualization, which had been our, the topic of our show on Friday of our podcast. So I just went and gave a speech about that, and I called on all my help from the unseen realm and just stood up there and delivered it in such a way that people just were blown away, and they said it was amazing. And that was really cool to have that, feedback from people that they really liked the topic and they liked the way I delivered it. So it was cool.
That's great.
It gave me confidence to do it more.
Yeah. And I would imagine that for you, being the person who delivered it, you were probably most satisfied with the fact that you were able to make your connections with the other side while you're doing it. Everything went smoothly. I mean, that's the part that I think would really be really satisfying. Obviously, audience appreciation is a lot too, but still, just that you were able to do it the way you wanted to do it, that's big.
Yeah, exactly that. It took a while to come up with a topic. It took a while to refine it into a speech. I practiced it 15 times, and then when I gave it, it was like, and I liked my speeches to be spontaneous. I like it to sound just like a conversation, or, like I'm really talking to the people. Like I'm not doing a canned presentation of a bunch of lines I memorized, because I didn't really memorize it. I just knew, that I was going from, point to point in a way, but each point I was improvising each time I gave it to some degree. Mm-hmm. So it was good, when I could stay spontaneous, and that's the real satisfaction for me, because I don't want to be a canned presenter who just gets up there like read the teleprompter kind of vibe.
Oh yeah. Well,
although sometimes it'd be nice to have a teleprompter.
Well, there is that too. Yeah, I mean that's the good thing about the politicians. They get the teleprompter to read into, so they always sound good, right? Even if you don't agree with what they're saying, they still sound good.
With Obama, sometimes you couldn't tell that he was reading. I suppose with Trump too. I mean, they're both pretty good speakers, so you get the feeling that they're really talking spontaneously, but they're not.
Right.
But Trump, I don't know. I don't know what he does, but.
Well, we can certainly say he's spontaneous. We'll give him credit for that. How about that?
He definitely comes up with whatever he wants to say. That's for sure. God bless him, I mean, I don't know.
So anyway, I had a little bit of fun myself this weekend. My wife and I have been spending the last few Sundays doing house hunting, looking for potential places to find and move to and so forth. And we're taking our time with it. A large portion of what we're doing is simply finding what's out there and finding what we like and taking advantage of the process of house hunting to visualize and to get excited about parts of given houses that we really like a lot, and in that way try to attract the ideal home. We aren't really setting any parameters like the house has to be this or it has to be that. We have certain things that we would prefer, that we would like for sure, and that's obviously what we look for as we're looking at houses. But mainly we're looking for what we would like for or better, that kind of mentality. And we also are doing our house hunting without any concern or any qualification regarding price. We're looking at houses that if you just look at our financial statement, you'd say there's absolutely no way they could afford those houses. But we're looking anyway because we're really trying to practice the idea that you want to get I can't afford out of your conversation. And it's not easy.
Yeah, you do.
It's not easy. But I have to say what's happening though, interestingly enough, is that the more we go after, this is like a weird thing, something I never expected. The more that we're going after houses that are way out of our price range, the more that price becomes inconsequential. And I can't really explain that other than, my wife asked me yesterday, well, what about this one house that we saw yesterday? The first one we saw, we liked a lot about it, including the fact that it was right next door to some kids she used to take care of a number of years ago. But this house had a whole bunch of stuff in it, but it was like way, way over our price range. And she was asking me, well, what do you think about that? And I said, honestly, I didn't think about it at all. When I looked at the price, it was just, it was a blank thing. It didn't have any impact on me. And I think what that means is I'm just not paying as much attention to, oh my God, can we afford this? I think I'm finally releasing that. And that alone excites me. The fact that I'm actually releasing that is like, this is good news. I'm not sure exactly how it all plays out, but that's got to be good news,
Yeah, well, it can play out exactly as you're describing it, really, right? Because with law of attraction is possible. Anything's possible if you, because things can come together in ways you never could have imagined. So,
right.
It's staying in the vibration of possibility that is so key to abundance, to having what we want. And there's so many aspects of being in that place of ease is what it ultimately comes down to, that's the bottom line on the whole money game is it, do you feel ease in your life right at this moment, or do you feel angst? And that ease is, if you're feeling it, if I'm feeling ease, that's what builds the next moment of ease, and that's what allows the next moment of ease. And eventually, if we stay in that place, everything we want will come. The relationships, the money, the house, the car, the health, all that stuff comes from being in a place where we're no longer focused on the I don't have it, and we're no longer focused on the this is hard, when we're no longer focused on I don't deserve it, or whatever it is, where the angst is. Where does the angst live, and where does it's sort of like, I was reading this thing Abraham was saying, you can know when you're attracting money because you'll feel good by the things you're doing. When you feel bad, then you know you're not attracting money. And sort of like, and of course they were talking in reference to you when you're thinking about money.
Right,
so
right.
If your thoughts about money feel good, you're attracting it. If your thoughts about money feel bad, you're not. But then the more I read into everything about attracting money, that everybody's saying it's you've got to get into a place where in your life you're focusing your flow of energy, your focus is on things that make you feel good. And whatever it is, it says if you have, that whole thing, if you have 9 things in your life that are going bad and you have one thing that's going good, if you can put your focus on the one thing that's going good, you will pull up the other 9. And that is totally true when it comes to money, So if we have angst about this aspect of money and that aspect of money, well, I have all these bills and I don't have enough in my savings account, and I need to, I don't have enough income coming in, and I can't afford that. And all those thoughts are all the thoughts that, as long as we're in those thoughts, we will not get what we want. But if we get into the thoughts of, I really like watching movies about James Bond, and I just love it so much, I'm going to watch the whole James Bond series. And, if you have really good feelings around that and you do it, that's going to be better vibration than any of the thoughts about money. you know.
Very true. I mean, what it
So
really comes down to is what's the story that we're telling ourselves, and the story that we're telling
yeah,
our friends and our family and associates and everybody else, because those stories
yeah.
directly impact what we're attracting. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we're doing the book, right? This book that we've been working on. Currently, I think we have 31 authors who have contributed to it. There are another 8 or 9 that are expected to send stuff in. And I mean, the stories, I've already been talking a few times on the show about how the stories are really good. I got another one today, just before we started today's show. I was reading it, and this woman, Renata, she wrote this story about getting a house, of all things, actually a condo. And the places her previous living situation was really horrific. But you read the story about how the whole thing comes together, and you get a sense not only of the miraculousness of it, because literally, I won't give away her story, but a miracle occurred. And when that miracle occurred, it occurred because she was in the process already of shifting her thinking away from all these terrible things are happening. And
Wow.
she basically put out like a plea to the universe, please help me, and was walking along, and this thing happened that I won't tell you what it is, and it so blew her away that it actually blew away her negative thinking, which is really pretty crazy. But it actually
Yeah.
made her say, you know what, I can let go of this pattern. I mean, I can start getting excited, and all of a sudden everything started to flow, and you know, I can't tell you the result of the story either, but it was good. I'll promise you that. So, I mean, stories,
Yeah.
the stories that we tell, I mean, she told a great story for the book, but also it's the stories we tell ourselves that make such a difference. She started to change her story, and things started to happen in ways that she didn't even expect. You know, couldn't possibly have expected, but they did happen. And that's one reason why we're putting out the book. I mean, we need stories. We human beings need stories. We need positive stories. We need stories that reinforce for us, yeah, the universe really does work. It does. It really is on our side. You know, if I make the changes in my thought process, good things will happen. That's why we're putting the book out. Plus, it helps publicize the show, and it publicizes the practices of the coaches who are contributing to it and so forth. But mainly, it gives us the fuel. It gives us the spiritual energy, the oomph, the desire to keep going despite all the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that have occurred to us. It keeps us going. It fuels us, and that's what this book is going to do. So, you know, listeners, by the way, I think I mentioned this a few times. Listeners are going to get a big advantage because they are going to get an opportunity to get a copy of the ebook for free. And you're going to find out how to do that if you keep listening. So I just wanted to toss that out there. But the main topic I want to include with our topic about finances and attracting financial abundance is it's all about the stories. That's it. Back to you.
Well, that's right on. I mean, it's so funny that you say that because I was looking. I have this card deck of, from Abraham Hicks, and where it's one of these. You pull a different card every day, kind of a thing, and there's like 50 cards or whatever. And so I was going through them last night, and because the whole card deck is about money and the law of attraction. So I wanted to see, what are the quotes? What are they? Here's where Abraham's gone through and pulled out all these quotes and put them on cards. So what are they saying? Like what's the main theme, or what are some of the things? Well, it turns out that the main theme throughout the whole deck is that you have to tell a better feeling story. So exactly what you're saying. And then I started thinking, because they make it so clear. Like if what is happening, and we focus on what is, and if what is I have debt, I have bills, I don't have enough money coming in, I need a different job, I need a better job, I need something, some windfall of money, or whatever it is about money, and all of the different ways we talk about it and think about it are our story, right? That's our old story. That's the what is. And then, and of course, because events keep happening that keep confirming the fact that we might not have enough. And then if we can tell a better feeling story of what we would prefer. So they keep saying, well, what do you want? What do you want? And how can you talk about what you do want? And I realized that sometimes that's not that easy. That you have to get into a place of happiness and ease and trust and love of yourself and start creating scenarios of what you do want, create that in your head, and then talk about it in a way that you feel good about it when you talk about it.
Isn't it amazing, though, how we so often will just, when we're telling a story, we tell the story of what it isn't, what we don't have, what isn't happening, what isn't working right. Why do we keep doing that? We seem to have culturally this tendency to tell the story backwards or inside out or in reverse or something. We don't actually say, this is the good stuff that's happening. We don't make up a story. This is great stuff going on right now. Why don't we do that? I don't understand.
Yeah, because there's not only the good things that are happening every day just in our actual experience. That's like looking at the good of what is, like, well, I do have that little bit of money over there in savings, or I do have that I do have a really nice car, and I actually am warm this morning because I actually am in an apartment or a condo or a house that's really pretty okay, and at least I have this, or whatever we do have, we have, as small as it might be.
Right.
If we focus on the good that we do have, and then we start saying, what could I imagine that I do want that I could get excited about, that I could feel good about? And then, like you say, how do we not throw in the, yeah, but I don't have that. Yeah, but I've been trying to get this money for 10 years and I still don't have it. Or, yeah, but, I'm in debt $50,000, so I not only have to figure out, yeah, but I'm really sick, and so how the hell is somebody who's sick going to go out and make money, So we have our yeah buts, and like you say with that woman in her story who was living in a not a very nice situation, and yet she somehow got into a vibration that allowed a total miracle to take place. Well, that's why we need those stories. Like you say, we so much need to see that, hey, in spite of the worst case scenarios, things can completely turn around. But how do they turn around? That's the thing. They turn around, according to everything I'm learning, because we somehow get our vibration onto something that we can tell a story about that feels good to us, or some activities that we even do that feel good to us. But it's more happening inside our imagination than anywhere else. It's happening in the way that we imagine things to be good instead of imagining them to be bad.
And the really funny thing is that, like you say, we want to know how it's going to happen, but that actually doesn't serve us because we can't always know. In fact, most of the time I've found when the really great stuff happens, if I had tried to predict how that was going to happen, I would probably have been thrown in a lunatic asylum because the scenario was so absurd, so completely off the wall that, a Hollywood scriptwriter couldn't come up with it. And yet that's the way it tends to happen almost every time. I'm amazed how often the really big transitional stuff, the stuff that makes a big difference, when it happens in ways that I couldn't have fathomed before it happened. So asking, how's it going to happen is basically like saying, tell me what the whole story is that a Hollywood scriptwriter couldn't even write in the first place before I've actually watched the story.
Yeah, I guess, when we're imagining the futures that we want, and if we want a future full of money and abundance and, the cars and the houses and everything we need the money for, that's one thing we can do. We can imagine it, and of course, as we said in the show on visualization, the main thing you have to do is get into the feelings of what it would feel like to have those things. How much relief would you feel? How much security would you feel? How much joy would you feel? How much freedom would you feel? What would that feel like? And can you get into those feelings now? And it's a game we can learn to play better and better. These things happen slowly to learn. We're developing a completely new muscle, the muscle of imagining joy and happy events rather than imagining devastation and failure and things going wrong, and continuing to put our focus on that disbelief that we have that things could really get that much better for us or that they're going to get better at all. Mm-hmm. And that's why Abraham, this thing I was reading It's actually from this other, channeled source called the Council of Radiant Light. But they said, we want to suggest that you do a pattern interrupt, almost like that's what NLP does. Like if a person's really stuck in a rut, the NLP practitioner will do something like all of a sudden clap their hands or something right in the middle of the person speaking, and then they'll ground that by touching the person's arm or something, and it puts a pattern interrupt into that person's psyche, where they no longer they have a reason to sort of bounce themselves out of this old rut of thinking about their problem in the same way, and they say you've got to do a pattern interrupt like that with your way of thinking about money, because you obviously are not getting the money coming quick enough or in a large enough amount because you are so stuck in the ways you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
And they say your abundance lies in your energy flow. All the things you want lie in where you put your focus. That's your real abundance. That's your wealth. Your wealth is your energy flow and your focus. So if you can put your focus on something wonderful in your life that truly turns you on, that truly makes you happy, that truly makes you feel good, put your focus on that and forget about everything else. Forget about money. Forget about, if you're trying to think about money in the future doesn't make you feel good, don't do it. That's not working either.
Right.
Put your focus on, like Esther Hicks said, she, tells people put their focus on feathers or blue glass or balloons or, what can you put your focus on that makes you feel good? It can, and the more neutral the thing is, sometimes the better. There's something completely neutral. They said it could be something as simple as your favorite chair that you sit in, and how you feel when you sit in your favorite chair. Maybe you spend a bunch of time in a certain chair. Well, so that alone, if you just focused on how good you feel when you sit there, that alone could get you on the track to what it means to feel good. You've got to find out, what does it mean to you to feel good?
Oh, yeah.
And how can you do more of that and more of that and more of that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, your mention of finding a way to break the pattern reminds me of something that Louise used to do with me many years ago when, speaking of finances, our finances were in shambles. And one of the things that she would do, we would talk about it, and of course, I'd end up talking about it in the terms that you've been mentioning, all the things going wrong and so forth. And at one point, she would just stop me. She'd come over to where I was. Usually we're like sitting on the couch or kind of laying down on the couch or whatever. And she'd come over and she would climb on top, straddle me, grab me by the lapels of my shirt, look deep into my eyes, like about 2 inches away, and say, "Snap out of it."
That's cool.
And it worked. Obviously, I laughed every time that she did that because it was hysterical. But it was the kind of thing that you need in order to just break the pattern, to break that long-standing habit of focusing on the negatives. And the thing I can report is that if you do make a commitment to at least start breaking the patterns, every time that you notice that you're saying it and you're repeating these negative things over and over again, whenever you notice it, what I would do is whenever I noticed it, I had like a couple of go-to things that I would replace them with. So I would stop it. So I would break the pattern. And over time, I can't say I've had the huge windfall of money yet, but my financial situation has improved. Our financial situation has improved, and it improved largely because of the way we changed our mindset.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I attract clients often by getting into a mindset of wealth. I just get so convinced that I'm doing fantastic with money, and I'm doing okay with money. But sometimes when I've needed clients and I get into this headspace of thinking I am wealthy. I have plenty of money. I'm rolling in money. Everything's fantastic with me and money. And then the more I get into it and actually just start walking around in that headspace, I mean, it takes, like being a good actor, but then the more I can believe it, the more I notice. I mean, I'll go to my computer and there'll be these people wanting appointments, and it was so cool because they start coming in from all over the world. I get
Right.
people from London, I get people from all these other countries, and it's like I go, wow, that's so cool that my vibration is literally attracting people from all over the world to contact me. And then, and then when they contact me, and I just say very nonchalantly, I said, this person's going to sign up with me. I just see them signing up, and I see them wanting to do coaching with me, and then it's like it happens so many times that way. And lots of times when I'm out having fun, like I go out and play guitar with a bunch of people, or I go out dancing, and I come home and there's 2 people contacting me to want to have appointments, and it's like, oh, and I might have been at home before, like kind of a little bit of angst about, I need to get a couple more clients, and well, I need to do some more marketing, and I need to think about this in different ways so I can attract some more clients, and I don't get anybody contacting me, and a whole couple of days will go by, and then I'll go out, like I said, I'll go out dancing, I'll go out with some friends for dinner, and then when I come home, so many times that's when somebody contacts me. They contact me when I'm having fun.
When you're feeling
I'm just
good.
completely let go of the whole thing about how am I going to get more clients. I'm not thinking about it, and that's so. Like we said in the other last 2 shows about the vortex and about how do we
Visualize.
have fun and how do we visualize. All 3 of those shows had the same basic underlying message,
Right.
which I've already said this show, which is you got to learn to have fun. You got to learn to have fun. You got to learn to have a good time. You got to learn to do the things you love. And it's so counterintuitive to the way we were raised, which said, obviously we repeated many times, if you want certain things in your life, you have to work hard, you have to get diligent, you have to get down to business, you've got to figure out a plan, you've got to make goals, you've got to stick to your plan, stick to your goals, you got to pay a price. Everything comes by push and pull. You push this and you pull that, and you push this and you pull that. It's called work. You work hard, and then the things you want will come. And Abraham and all these other non-physical entities that are getting channeled are saying that's not how life works. Life works by you having a blast, you imagining good things, and then those things will come. It's like, oh, that's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. And it's also, like you say, it's a bit counterintuitive to what we've been raised to believe, but it is something that is worth trying. One of the things I mentioned a moment ago, how our financial situation had improved, that it hadn't exploded necessarily, although I think that's actually coming, but it had improved, and it improved incrementally, which is very much in alignment with what Abraham teaches. They teach, if you're trying to move yourself up the emotional scale, if you move your emotional set point, you don't try to go from depressed to exhilarated all in one step. You go one little step at a time, making it a little bit improved, a little bit improved, a little bit improved. And the same thing is true financially. Joel, for instance, has told the story many times about how there was a gentleman who he was working with who was a salesman. I don't remember who he worked for, but he was a salesman. And as a salesman, he was making X number of dollars, and he was like one of the lowest paid salesmen in the office. And so Joel asked him, well, what would you like to make? And the guy says, well, I'd like to make like $500,000 a year. And Joel says, well, do you really believe that? Because that's a really, really large jump from where you are right now. And the guy kind of, hesitated a little bit. And so he said, well, tell you what is the amount of money that the best salesman in the office makes? And so he told him, and Joel said, well, let's start aiming more toward that. Right now you're at X. Could you make X plus 10? X thousand plus another 10,000. Do you think you could increase it that much just by changing your sales efforts? Because obviously a salesperson, they have the opportunity to do relatively quick, if small, changes in their income just by what they do, what they produce. So the guy says, yeah, okay. So they start working on that, and in a very short period of time, he had gotten up, an extra $10,000, and then they went for another $10,000, and they just kept moving it up. By the end of, I think it was 1 year, the guy had increased his income by about 60 to 70%, all by doing it incrementally. And doing it incrementally was important because he could believe it. That's what you were just talking about. You have to be able to believe it. If you can believe it, it will happen. If you can't believe it, you're just arguing against yourself. And that's what Joel wanted to make this guy do. He wanted him to be in a space of belief so that he could actually achieve it.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I like the thing that that this thing I was reading yesterday said. You gotta You got to come to the place where the thing that you have zero resistance about, the thing that you do to get yourself into that place of being happy, of feeling good. That, like, so here's one thing they say. It says, you can take the simplest things in your life, like a beautiful tree in your backyard, a wonderful pet you adore, a beautiful piece of music, and you love how it feels when you listen to it. And that's where they said a favorite spot in your house, a favorite way that you like to be when you're in that spot in your house. These things alone can be your vehicle to get to everything you want in your life. That's to me a very poignant statement, because it's saying that everything you want in your life is going to come from you finding something that you can completely love and have no resistance about how much you love it. So
I believe that.
I think that's very telling,
Yeah, I think so too. In fact, one of the things that I've been thinking about regarding the show, regarding the podcast, is almost from the very beginning, I wanted to find a way to differentiate it from other podcasts. I mean, that's a basic marketing principle. If you want people to be attracted to your product rather than your competitor's product, you have to differentiate it. You have to make it different. You have to show why yours is better than the other one, or why yours is more interesting, or fills a need better, or whatever it might be. And so I was asking myself that question, well, what would differentiate our podcast from the many other podcasts that are out there about the law of attraction? And I realized the one thing I wanted to differentiate with more than anything else was what we talked about earlier. I wanted to have more storytelling in what we do than what the others do. I wanted storytelling to be, the focal point. And it has been a slow evolution over time, but it has evolved. It has gotten better. I mean, since I brought you guys on and with Joel and so forth, the storytelling has improved. We all make it a point to find stories from our own lives, from lives, experiences with clients or friends, family, whatever, to illustrate points and to show how the whole thing works. Well, I'm actually to the point now where that storytelling, I've been really dreaming with it. And of course, that's the best part, right? You get to dream, and you're dreaming big. Well, I've been dreaming really big about this, and realizing if we can essentially revolutionize storytelling such that we are telling positive stories, which is very different from what you normally get in the storytelling market, right? When you look at movies or entertainment of various kind, books, novels, whatever it might be, music industry, the stories are so downer and so negative, and there's all this drama and blah 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 blah. There aren't all that, or if you do like what's in the positive space, it's like Hallmark Channel, which is positive, but it's almost sickeningly sweet positive. It's like, oh, what a sweet ending, that kind of thing. Like, oh no, come on, how about just staying positive? How about just feeling good about stuff? And I remember even having a conversation with my sister, who was a theater major in school, and asking her, why don't we have more positive stories? And she explained to me, well, it's because of the way a story works. Stories depend upon a conflict that gets resolved in order to make it something that holds our attention, gets us interested, and we identify with it. And Tom, for the longest time, I bought into that to the extent that I started to think, well, maybe the only kind of stories you can tell that really grab people in large numbers are essentially negative. But I couldn't quite convince myself of that. And especially after hearing what Abraham and others in this genre have to say, I just couldn't buy it, because if positive stories that we tell ourselves are how we get ourselves into the place of being in a receptive mode, being able to receive all this stuff we've been asking for and have the better lives we've been asking for and so forth, if that's the truth of it, then it just seemed like A follows B, or B follows, A doesn't follow B, sorry. Like B follows A, that, A does not follow B, it never has.
Maybe you're onto something there.
Yeah, that's right. But just like B follows A, if you tell a positive story, a story that has a little bit of conflict in it, but most of the story is positive, that it would still be a good story. People would still like it. And I've been working on that hypothesis ever since, both in terms of the podcast and in terms of my own self-talk and, what I think about and how I think about stuff. In fact, I've actually gotten to the point now, Tom, the reality TV shows that are out there, and you know which ones, like the housewives stories and all those kind of things. They all follow the same formula, and quite honestly, it's a formula that makes me ill when I think about it, because that's, well, first of all, I never watched them, but the formula goes something like this, and I'm making up a scenario. This is not any particular show I've seen. This is just like, this covers a lot of them. So you have person A and person B, and the two of them are fighting, and they can't get along, and one of them basically assaulted the other one, and feelings are running high, and friends are ganging up on one side or the other, and so forth. And then they go to commercial break, and when they come back from commercial break, it's, now we just saw how the two were fighting, and they were going at each other, and so forth. And then you go to another commercial break, and they were still fighting. It's like every single time they're building the conflict, and then at the very end, they show you what the resolution was. I'm thinking, whoa, that is really hellish to go through all that just to keep your audience engaged. What if we were to reverse that formula entirely? What if we were to show the conflict and then show how it plays out into its resolution, and then go to the commercial and come back and say, now here was the conflict, but then here was the resolution, and then you play out the resolution again, and then you have the commentary from the participants saying, yeah, this was the resolution, and then they go to commercial. So we had the resolution. What if you reverse the formula entirely? You still have the conflict, but now you're not living in the conflict. Now you're living in the resolution. Now, there are many people in the overall storytelling industry, everybody from movie producers to songwriters to whatever, who will tell me that won't work. And you know what? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. We'll find out. But this is the dream I have for the podcast, of telling stories where we're constantly repeating the wonderful result. Yeah, we tell the conflict, and then we say, here's how it resolved. Here's how it played out in this miraculous way that we couldn't believe. I think if we do that, I think we revolutionize storytelling in a way that not only makes entertainment different, but it makes the personal stories that we tell ourselves different.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're saying, because I feel like in you expressing that, I have finally found a kindred spirit who agrees with me, because that's exactly my sentiment also.
Oh, really?
And I literally did I'm in a class to learn how to channel. And the other day, I just asked, what wanted to channel through me, and when I put my pen on the paper and I start writing, I don't know what's going to come out at all, because I'm trying to just channel from the unseen realm, and so here comes this story, and it's a story about this guy who's going out for a walk with his favorite little dog that he has, and he's carrying his dog in his jacket, and it's a little tiny little dog, and I won't tell the whole story, but basically, he sets his dog down, and he hardly ever sets his dog down, because it's just really tiny, tiny little sweet little dog, and it doesn't really have much of a ability to go romping around. But anyway, in the story, his dog disappears for a moment, but then he suddenly realizes that it went down a prairie dog hole, and it's playing with these prairie dogs, and so there's resolution really quickly, right? But the whole story is about the sweetness of the guy's relationship to his dog and then to the prairie dogs. And I realized after I wrote it, it's more of a children's story. It's like, you don't want to necessarily give children all this drama and trauma, a traumatizing experience like I got when I was a little kid watching the movie Bambi, or watching some of those Disney movies that had so much drama in them, like Snow White and all these movies. It was like so friggin' scary, because horrible things were happening, and I was really worried about what was going to happen to the characters, And I remember, being terrorized by that stuff. But anyway, when I wrote this story, I thought, oh, this is me trying to write stories that are exactly what you described, because I actually believe the same thing, that we've been so traumatized for so long. Our ancestors were so traumatized by so much war and famine and plague and treating each other with abuse, that we think if there's not that aspect in things, if there isn't a very dramatic thing happening, that it's not worth living.
Right.
how boring to sit around feeling good and having a good time. But I actually believe that's I think a lot what our indigenous ancestors did. I mean, of course, you could come up with arguments like, no, they were warring and they had horrible things that they were dealing with. But I don't totally believe that. I think there was a lot of time on the face of the earth when human beings just get along. They just get along and they have good times, and there isn't as many horrible things happening. A lot of people go through, like 80, 90 years of life, and their lives are pretty not traumatic. Like a lot of people, they don't have a whole lot of trauma and drama. Of course, if we believe that death is a horrible thing and all that, then we always are going to assign that to death. And, there's diseases and there's people getting limbs cut off and things happen, But like you say, I mean, how much of our life really is dramatic and how much is really working out good? That's the hardest thing to convince somebody who's like one of my clients who's comes to me with tremendous problems. And like I said in another program, I might spend 5 or 6 sessions to get them to back off the edge of the cliff they feel like they're on, because they feel so dramatically traumatized by their situation. But where they have to get to eventually is to start looking for, well, what's working out in your life? What feels good in your life? Can you put focus on that? Can you start thinking about that and talking about that? Like, tell me about the things that are working okay. And now, how can you slowly withdraw your focus on the things that aren't working and the things you're afraid of and the things that you think are devastating to you? And how can you start putting your focus on a better feeling story and about what is working out in your life? So, yeah, it's a whole other way of thinking that I agree with you. We could learn to tell stories that way. It would be interesting to play with that. I would love to play with that idea.
Oh, it would be revolutionary. I mean, if we look back at the history of storytelling dating back to, like, Greek mythology, I mean, Greek mythology, when you look at Greek mythology, when you really look at it honestly and with a certain objective viewpoint, what you realize is that Greek mythology is all about engaging in human foibles followed by going to war. And it's always some kind of foible, and it's usually a minor one because some sort of god or goddess, got in trouble, and so that means everybody has to go to war. And then it's all about the glory of war and how valiant somebody was in war and blah, 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 all this war stuff. In fact, like 80% of all of the Greek myths, the tales from Greek mythology, are about the war. They're about the battles. And I'm thinking, whoa, yeah, you train people in studying that stuff and believing that stuff. Guess what you're going to end up with? It's just A follows A follows B. There it is again. A follows B. No, B follows A. This is an example of how we have to retrain. I somehow I got in my mind that A follows B. Does A follow B? It never has. But nevertheless, I keep going back to it because I've habitually said that.
It's actually it's reflecting the way that you're talking to your audience. Because to most people, when you say that you're going to go have a story about resolution, that is turning the whole situation that we're used to on our head. So it is like saying that A follows B.
It is,
like
yeah, in a
people
sense.
Go, wait a minute. A doesn't follow B. How come you keep saying that? And they say, well, because I believe that you can actually change an entire paradigm that your whole culture has believed in, which is that if you don't go from good times to bad times, the hero then comes on the scene, the hero saves the day, and then everybody's happy and lives happily ever after until the next huge drama comes, right. And then everybody's traumatized again. And, but in a way that's the pattern that life in certain ways does follow that pattern, because if you want something, like you want a really amazing new house, and you get all excited about it, but there's a difficulty in that you'd say you don't have the money to afford the new house, and then you go for it, and then there has to be this way that, you finally get the money, and then it resolves the drama of how you were ever going to be able to get the money, and then you finally able to afford the house, and then it's like you don't go in that house and live happily ever. You go in that house and you start thinking, but I'd rather have a house that was actually up on the hillside, because this house is looking at the forest, and I like the forest, but now I'm getting tired of the forest. I want to go on a hillside where I have a long view, so I need a house up on the hillside. And so the point is, we're always going to be expanding our view of what is cool, what makes us happy, what we want. And so Abraham's constantly saying, you put your focus on something you really want, and you get it, and then you're on to the next thing. So they said the whole trick is enjoy the journey to get to the things. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the journey, enjoy the journey. And I don't know what point I'm making, but I guess it's just that enjoyment is the thing that we want. We want to feel good, and we want to feel good now. We don't want to wait to feel good when we finally have the $1 million, when we finally have the house on the hill. We want to be feeling good even though our house is in the trees. Can we feel good now? And then, if we want the house on the hill, go for it. But you got to feel good about your house in the trees,
Yes. Yes. And the whole thing about my slip of the tongue that I keep falling into of A follows B, to me, that is metaphorical for all the crazy stories we tell each other and tell ourselves. I can't ever get money. I'm always short of money. I never have enough. I'm always struggling to pay the rent. There's never anything in savings. That's like saying A follows B and saying it repeatedly. It's not true unless you keep focusing on it, and then you make it true. B. You say,
exactly.
If I keep saying this over and over again, that somehow it's going to get better. Like if I keep saying that A follows B, somehow B's going to, come before A.
A is going to follow B.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right.
It's like, no, that's not the way it works. You work it by going downstream, not by going upstream. Going upstream is doing the hard way to do it. You do it the easy way.
Yeah.
You say B follows A.
Yeah.
That's nice and easy. You tell the story of how things are going to get better. That's nice and easy. You don't keep going and beating your head against the wall of conflict saying, I got to tell a more conflicting story. No, not that.
Yeah.
Anything but that.
Yeah. That's what upsets me so much about Hollywood is that they just keep putting in front of the minds and the eyes of all the kids and all of us. Every time we watch most Hollywood movies, is just this image that the way life works is these incredible dramas. Like things get really bad before they get better. They get worse and worse. Like Star Wars and all these movies. Things just get worse and worse and worse, and more devastation and more devastation. The heroes have a harder and harder time. And so it takes just a huge thing to finally overcome the darkness. It takes just this massive miracles and massive amounts of energy brought to bear till finally, the heroes can win out over the darkness. And of course, in some movies they don't even win; they actually lose.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if you keep telling that story, Hollywood, you keep telling that story, America, you go read that newspaper, you go watch the news. And if it's going to keep telling you how bad it is in Washington and how horrible Congress is and how horrible it's going with the environment and how horrible it's going with the president and all these things, then, that'll keep happening. I'll guarantee it.
That and a lot more.
A will keep following B,
right.
because you believe that that's how life works,
Yeah.
But it's actually designed for B to follow A.
Right.
But what does that look like? It's not. It hasn't been in front of the eyes of most people since the time of Greek mythology, and maybe before that there was more stories. I think if you go into some Native American mythology and stuff, I've been exposed to some of that, and there is a lot of stories that just don't have that theme. They don't have that real dramatic theme.
Right.
A lot of them tell stories, like for example, they'll tell animal stories, and the animal stories will have a dramatic thing that happens. But it won't be this huge, devastating thing. It'll be more like a lesson is learned kind of story, but it'll be like all the characters survive, and they all do okay because they're actually a cooperating team when it all comes down to it. I don't know I don't know about this, where I'm going with this, because I'm not that well versed in Native American mythology, but I do believe that you're right that there is such a thing as telling. The way we tell stories to children that are loving and kind and full of goodness, it is possible to tell those stories to adults. And it could have a better effect than telling incredibly devastating stories,
Oh, yeah.
But like Abraham says, why do you have war? He says, because you like it.
Yeah.
Because there's certain people in this vast diversity of all the different types of people there are. Some people like to have the war. They like the story.
They do.
And they're going to keep doing it. They say, You're not necessarily going to stop them from doing it.
Right. Yeah. Nor is it our job to stop them from doing it.
Right.
What is our job is to focus on what we want in our lives. Just because they're having a war over there doesn't mean we have to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah.
If they want to go have their war, okay. You know, I always thought the best way to have a war would be to take the two leaders of the two warring, countries and just put them on an island and let them duke it out until they're done. And like, okay, good. Now we got rid of both of them.
Right.
But the point is,
keep it away from me.
Yeah. Well, the way to keep it away from me actually isn't to do that. The way to keep it away from me is just not to even think about it, not to even be on that topic, because I don't want to attract that into my life. I want to attract peace. I want to attract, an abundant life into my life. That's what I want. So I want to tell stories like that. And if I want to if I want to attract financial abundance, then it's about time I tell stories to myself about financial abundance. Now, that's a new skill.
Yeah.
It's not a skill we're used to involving ourselves in. It's a skill that we have to develop. And it's kind of like when we were kids. When we were kids, we knew how to play make-believe. We were good at it. Some of us were better than others, but we all knew how to do it. We all did it to some extent or another. It might be even as simple as, well, I'm going to pretend I want to grow up to be a fireman, or I want to grow up to be a ballerina, or I want to grow up to be an astronaut, or whatever it was. But the point is, we would play the scenario out. We would play it out in our heads. We would talk it out with our friends. We'd pretend, I'm climbing into the capsule. I'm going to fly to the moon. Okay, here's the countdown: 10, 9, 8, and you just go through the whole thing, right? We did that.
Yeah.
Well, clearly, if we did it then, we can do it now. The only reason we don't do it now is we've been talked out of it. We've allowed ourselves to be talked out. We've talked ourselves out of it. We said, "Oh no, that's childish behavior." The make believe is for kids, right? That's not something for an adult. That's what we've told ourselves. And in the process of telling ourselves that, we have taken away from ourselves our most important tool. That's the tool. That's how we learn to tell the new kind of story we've never told before. So, sure, we don't see a whole lot of stories out there about, financial abundance. But let's see if we can make one up. So I'm going to tell one right now, all right? I'm just going to make one up. And this probably won't even be a great story because I don't have a lot of practice at it, but what the heck? Okay. So Walt got up this morning and he decided he was going to change his financial situation. So he decided, okay, well, I'm going to try to learn how to think abundantly. And so he sat down and thought and drew a blank. He had no idea what to do. So he said, well, I got to do something. So he decided to, he was going to try to do this make-believe thing. Okay, we got to do make-believe. So I am going to make believe that I am a multi-billionaire. I don't know what a multi-billionaire does. All right, change the story. I'm going to believe that I am a multi-millionaire. No, I still don't know what a multi-millionaire does. Okay, I'm going to change the story. I'm going to be a financially independent person. Well, I can kind of start to believe that one. So let's see. If I'm financially independent, well, what's been happening as a financially independent person is that money just keeps coming in. I'm able to pay the bills, and I don't even worry about the bill. In fact, I've got the bills on auto pay. Oh, that's pretty cool. I like that. Okay. So now let's see. What am I doing in this situation where I'm financially independent? Well, actually, I'm not doing anything. I love that part. But I had to get it there somehow. So how did I do it? Well, I don't really know how I did it. But somewhere along the way, I was able to change my mindset. And it was actually at the point that I sat down and started telling a new story. Okay. So here's my new story. I am financially independent. That seems weird to say it, but I can kind of see it. So what's that like? Well, I live in a beautiful house. I mean, you're financially independent. You get to live in a beautiful house, right? It has all the things that you want in your house. And,
if you want to.
Louise and I like lots of space. So, we want to have a nice big house, even though it's just the two of us. Oh, by the way, we have an extra little thing that we want to throw in, a little wrinkle. We want to have what we call the garçon. The garçon is the one. The garçon.
Oh.
The garçon is the one we say, garçon, we want breakfast. Garçon, we want lunch. Garçon, clean the house. Garçon, take out the garbage. Garçon, we want to have the garçon. So we need to have like an au pair residence to go with the house, right? So there's going to be an extra little residence for the garçon to live in. And so now we're going to be living in this really great lifestyle where somebody's taking care of all the mundane daily stuff that we don't have to deal with. And now we get to have fun. we get to have fun in this house. In fact, we get to leave the house because we're financially abundant. We're independent. We are independently wealthy, and not like flowing with wealth, but we have enough money coming in that we can go off and we can travel. So we're going to take a trip to Hawaii, and we're going to go enjoy Oahu, and we're going to actually take one of those helicopter trips, and we're going to spend time on the beach, and we're going to go check out a native luau, and we're going to do all this other stuff that's there, and that's going to be a whole lot of fun. And then when we come back from Hawaii, we're going to go to the Caribbean, and then after the Caribbean, it's going to be winter. We're going to go up to the Rockies or to New England, and we're going to go skiing, and we're going to have all this great fun. Now I'm starting to tell my story. Now, is it a great story? Hell no, it stinks. I haven't learned how to tell the story yet, but it's a lot better than the one I was telling, and it's certainly got the right elements in it. And if I keep learning how to tell that story, I will actually learn how to build that little conflict in, how to tell the story of the characters and the protagonist and the antagonist. I'll learn how to do that over time. But I started with what I know how to do right now. And you have to start somewhere. How'd I do?
Oh, I think it's great, because I think the key to it is to make it magical and fanciful. Those are the words that I think I know I talk to clients and myself about is don't make it just a recitation of a boring, like realistic story. Make it magical and fanciful, because the more magical and fanciful you can make it, the more and get into those feelings of how it feels good. It feels good. It feels fun, and you start noticing your energy rise. And throw in the wahoos. Throw in the this feels awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's the energy that we want. We want to feel good. We want to feel. That's a pattern interrupt to the old story of, I've got debt, and I don't know, I've been in debt for 10 years, and, this is not good. I've been stuck here forever. Anyway, you just saying that little bit makes me feel bad. I don't even want to say it at all.
Yeah, really.
Even right now. I only want to talk about the kind of stories you were telling. So, yeah, I love it. Make it fanciful and magical and interesting and exciting. Yeah. So I think you're well on your way.
Maybe what we should be doing is collecting stories like that. Getting people to start their own stories and kind of tracking what happens as the story actually unfolds, because that's what we're doing. We're living our stories. When we start telling stories like this, then the stuff starts to happen in our lives, and even in little ways. I think it'd be fun to follow a story like that.
That's why every time you ask me for a win, it's like we ask each other for a win, and the wins, if you piece them all together, you could start telling a story. Oh, your life is really working out well in all these different ways, right? Yeah. So, it starts to become a story you can keep building on then. I mean, that's why if you just go back and look at 2017 and say, what are all the high points of all these things that I accomplished in 2017, then that can be the beginning of the story of 2018. So, I did all that in 2017. Look what I can do in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So focus on all the awesome things that are happening, that have happened, and just keep putting your focus there instead of on, but I didn't do this, and I didn't do that, and this went wrong, and that went wrong. Forget about all that, what went wrong. Just focus on what went right and see what happens.
Absolutely. In fact, one thing that is about to happen that's going to be really right, just want to remind everybody, because we only have about a minute and a half left, is the show on Tuesday night that Tom, you and I are going to do. We're breaking ground by doing an evening show, East Coast time in the U.S. It's Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's New York time. And so hopefully more U.S. people will be able to call in. We're hoping to make it a call-in show. But even our friends around the world, because now that we're using the freeconference.com software, you can just go to the website, loatoday.net. You'll see instructions about how to connect to us, either by cell phone if you're in North America and it's not costing you a lot, or even internationally. You can actually do it through your computer or through your smartphone. There are apps that you can download that'll connect to us. It costs you nothing. So take advantage, and we want to talk to you on Tuesday night. Don't you think, Tom?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely, we're going to keep this topic going, and we've got more to say about it. I've got a lot more to say about it.
Well, then that's all the more reason for people to tune in. So, Tom, this has been good. We're going to carry it on Tuesday night, but this has been a good start so far.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, goodbye.